Welcome to Discussions with the Writer Fred, right here on Black Video News in hot San Antonio, Texas. Today we're going to take up a topic that we have dealt with in the past, and that is Black Wall Street and what happened to Black Wall Street during the Tulsa Massacre of 1921. Most of you are very familiar with Black Wall Street, but I imagine if I throw some names out there, you may not know who these people are. And we're going to deal with that today because we're going to talk about the key player, the richest, most prosperous, and leading black man on Black Wall Street. And that was Mr. J.B. Stratford. And today I have with me his great-granddaughter, Ms. Laurel Stratford, who's going to enter into a discussion about this man, where we're going with the story, what needs to happen with this story, and just briefly talk about where you are and what you feel about all this, okay?
Well, first of all, I'm really proud that you've brought me here a number of times for us to work on this project, because I felt very strongly about it since I was a little girl when I was first introduced to the story of J.B. Stratford. Mm-hmm. And, many years later, I was given a picture and I looked like him, and I thought, yeah, this is some spiritual connection, I think. But I'm really glad that we're working on something that tells a positive history, for the most part, of African Americans who came out of slavery, managed to figure out a way to be successful and educate their children and keep people safe and build communities that strived in locations all over the country.
And why are you here for the third time? Yeah, we brought you in here 3 times.
Yeah.
And we're making progress.
Well, because we're making a movie now.
Oh, really?
Yes, like you don't know. and it's a wonderful story to be told now in our history, because it starts from slavery, where a lot of people had no options to go further than the plantation or whatever. And with JB's background, he was able to become educated, and he had a family.
Well, let's talk about his background just for a minute.
Yeah.
He was a graduate of Oberlin College.
Yes.
And received his law degree from Indiana University.
That's right.
And migrated to Tulsa, I think about 1905. Is that correct?
That's about right, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, but to go even further back from that point in his life, I think is interesting segments that I think brought him to that level. I mean, he learned from his father, who was very strict, that he had to learn to read. Every day on the way up the stairs, he had to read whatever his father had posted or found. He had to learn to read it. Mm-hmm. He also learned as a little boy to play marbles, which were with agate rather than actual gold balls. And he won everybody's agate. But then the sad part about it, then he had nobody to play with. So he wanted to pull the group together again, and he figured it out that he could trade the agate back to the guys if they gave him an egg. And so he collected these eggs, and then he sold the eggs.
So he's already a businessman.
So he's already learned how to make money.
Yeah, how to make money.
And without doing anything illegal, and doing the things that was acceptable by the people he approached. And
right.
It's a fun bit of his life that he learned to do that. And he's... so
that's one of your favorite stories that you've gotten
it is.
Passed down to you?
Yeah, because he did it on his own. It wasn't like somebody told him to do this and this was going to happen, because he also tried one other event that I have learned about, that he was at dinner with his family, and his mother was so upset because all the vegetables were gone. She had no vegetables to feed because the neighbor's chickens had come and taken over the garden, and she couldn't do anything about it. So he, on his own, decided to help solve this problem, and he killed the chickens and brought them home.
Right. Yeah.
But then his father had a fit that he would steal something and kill something. I mean, he was punished worse for trying to do something right. And
we're talking about for our viewers, we're talking about a period in his life right after Emancipation Proclamation. Probably this is about
No,
18.
no, he was young. He
No,
was
no,
only,
that's right.
oh,
This is
those,
after Emancipation Proclamation.
Okay.
So it's about 1875, 1880 before he
Right.
gets to
Yeah.
Tulsa. Can you tell our viewers how did he get the Stratford name?
Well, his father was a slave. And when the slave owner went to do his buying of the shipload of people that came over, they found at the end this one lost little boy. He had no family. There was nobody else there claiming him. And so the slave master bought him. And because he was about 3 or 4 years old, he had taken him home rather than putting him in a plantation. There wasn't anything he could do at that age. But he would be the one that would work in the morning and bring coffee or tea in the afternoon to the mother or whoever was in the house. And
This is Julius Caesar. That was the father. That's his father.
yeah, and he was the same age as the little girl in the house. And because they were both kids at the same age, there was no issue of racism. You know, they were both young kids. And as they grew up, she was learning to read and she taught him how to read. And nobody knew that. And so he learned to read and he grew older. And as he got older, then he did start working directly with the plantation owner, going out into the community and out on the road to sell whatever he was growing and having sold.
Right.
And a couple times they went way up north, and one time they crossed into, but actually along the way, on the first trip, JB told them that he heard about the Emancipation Proclamation. And even when I heard that, I thought, how did he learn to say that? There was a mouthful for a kid. But he said that he knew that he was going to be freed, that all
Right.
blacks were going to be freed from slavery. And the slave owner told him, no, don't even discuss it. He didn't want to hear anything about it. There was no connection at that point. But on the next trip, they went into Canada. And they stopped in Stratford, Ontario. But that's Stratford, and he gave him his freedom. Offered it to him, and he accepted it. But he changed the name to Stratford, so the second T became a D, and that was our name. And it has been our name all along. It's my name and everybody else's name still. So.
One other incident that addresses JB's business acumen happened with near beer and beer before he got to Tulsa.
Yeah,
Can you tell that story?
Yeah, that was one of my favorites too, because he learned that blacks were allowed to be in a certain car on the train, and he decided, after he had made a few stops before then at different cities and started schools, and so he heard about the Native Americans, who he was feeling really sensitive about, because he had also understood that the whites had kind of dismissed them on many levels, running them off property and so on. So he gets on this train and in this one car, and for whatever reason, there was one white guy on the train with him, and among everybody else. And apparently there had been no other place for this white guy to sit. So they got to know each other. And in the conversation, the fellow said, well, I sell beer, maybe you could sell beer to these Indians, because he was going out there really to focus on them and build a tent and sell things. And so they agreed that this gentleman would send him the beer, but he couldn't sell him real beer, only near beer to black people. So he said, all right, send me the near beer. Well, he got to California, got it all set up. The beer arrived, and it sold so fast that he kept ordering it, and it kept coming. And it turned out that instead of sending the near beer, the guy accidentally sent real beer.
Okay, yeah.
And later on, I understood that he found out that the guy on the train was Charlie Schlitz.
The Schlitz beer.
But he was a young boy. This was
Right.
before he owned the company.
Right, yeah.
And it was hugely successful. So, you know, there's so many things in JB's background set him up to think, oh, the best is yet to come.
And the best to come would be Stratford Hotel.
Well, I think he, not just the hotel, I think he felt very proud of having the community come together.
Okay.
It was a community of Black people who were educated or
Right.
about to be educated. They were prepared to open their own businesses.
Right.
They built houses and schools and churches. They saved money. They communicated as a group, not just every person was individually trying to make the best of their lives. They were all working together, doctors and lawyers and.
Right. It's a great story because the blacks came to Tulsa like the whites did because it was the oil boom.
Right.
Blacks could not, because of segregation, even though you might own an oil well, right? They, isn't that true that you might have?
Well,
deed to
I
oil well?
understood. My aunt told me that I had inherited one, but there's never been a day yet I met anybody who said, oh yeah, it's that one over there.
Yeah. Well, what they usually did was lock blacks out from owning the oil wells, but they could work the oil fields.
Yeah.
And then you had such successful businesses that they were hiring, whites were hiring maids, butlers,
Right.
and servants.
Right.
So they would go over in the South Tulsa to the white community, make their money. But here's the beautiful thing about those brothers and sisters. They'd bring it back over to North Tulsa or Greenwood, and they'd keep the money there.
Well, that's
'Cause they had
exactly
all
what
kinds of
happened,
business.
because they
Yeah.
were allowed to work outside of the gap, the Greenwood, Archer, and Pine limitations for where you could live, the name of the streets. So they could leave and work and come back, but they're coming back with the money, and it's coming in and staying in the community.
Right,
They're
yeah.
supporting one another and joining one another on bigger projects and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
it really blossomed.
And your great-grandfather is one, along with O.W. Gurley,
Right.
that started the whole movement to build an independent economic community outside of the white community. And later on, we know that becomes one of the major problems leading to the confrontation in 1921. Would you
Right.
say?
I would say so, yeah. And there was a jealousy about it, you know, because not only were the blacks building places to live and rent and teach, they also had communicated with whoever the first person was to do Ford cars. So there were all these automobiles they had access.
Right.
And they were trusted medically. I mean, the doctors among them were trusted well, and some of the white families were not as racist as others, and certainly
But there are plenty that were racist.
Yeah, there was a lot. There was a lot.
Yeah.
But then there were those that were accepting it, that they were not just going to accept the difference. And a lot of them were women who were not as racist against the blacks.
Well, you know, I think that's true throughout the history of our relationship with white people. That white women, because our women went over there and took care of their kids, so they built somewhat of a bond
Right.
between them that never did build up between black men and white men.
And I think that was one of the issues, because like you're saying, the white women were grateful to have somebody who could come and cook and clean and take care of the babies, you know, the girls
yeah.
were being there. And so often, if there was an illness, there was no doctor necessarily in the white community. They wanted to go see the doctor they knew that was in the black community. And I think that was one of the things that triggered even more hatred from the white men against the blacks, because they were seeing that the white women were accepting the difference, some of them, of racism. You know, we're people, we're living together. It was a good thing.
Okay, we're going to take a break here.
Okay.
And we come back. I have a couple more questions I'd like to ask you about Mr. J.B. Stratford.
I'd be happy to tell you.
Thank you.
Whatever
Okay.
I know.
Okay, we'll be right back with you.
40% of food in America is never eaten. Marie, you have prediabetes.
Pre-diabetes? I don't have time to eat right or exercise. I'm a busy mom.
Oh, you're a busy mom.
Yeah.
This is great news. Busy moms never get prediabetes.
Wait, what?
Let me just... Yeah, this is all the people at risk for prediabetes, and way over here, busy moms. No?
Hey, you.
Yeah, you. Getting that college education? What are you gonna do? Graduate and take some office job? Be like everybody else?
Or will you dare do something different?
Like, be a teacher. You could be my teacher. You got the skills.
The smarts?
Yes, you. You could be the teacher I never forget.
That'd be cool.
Does that corporate job even have recess? What are you gonna make of yourself?
What are you gonna make of me?
I've just been in an accident. What am I supposed to do?
Before you act, let me attack. I'm Nathaniel Mack. Call today, 333-MACK. You don't pay unless we win.
Let's call Mac.
Let's call Matt.
Nothing to do this week? Don't miss another event. Go to blacksinsanantonio.com for our event calendar. The home of the largest business directory in San Antonio with an African American focus. Sign up today for our weekly e-blast and text message alerts. Help us make this a better community. Connect, empower, grow.
Welcome back to Discussions with the Writer Fred. Again, right here, Black Video News, and I have to say this again because it's so hot. Hot San Antonio, Texas. Okay. Ms. Stratford, I'd like to maybe, if you don't mind, ask you another question.
No,
because
no problem.
I think this is great information. This is not my usual kind of discussion, but I thought this was important because this is history that we need to know about. It really is.
And I really think it's inspiring history.
Right,
Because
yes.
if we can come from slavery and be the wealthiest people in that state, or in some other state maybe, or well-educated, we can do this.
Or to build up those businesses
Yeah,
the way
we
they
can do
did.
this, yeah.
So let me ask you, after it's all over, they've destroyed Greenwood area, which was Black Wall Street area. They convene a grand jury
Right.
to say who's to blame for this. And one of the folks they indicted was Mr. J.B. Stratford. Why do you think they indicted your great-grandfather?
Because he was a very successful leader. I don't know that he was any more than a few of the other members, but a lot of the people were grateful for his opportunity to help them build businesses, educate their kids, understand the importance of seeing life grow better than to just suffer with losses.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a great leader. I mean, he was a very welcome man, and I don't know of anybody of color who didn't like him.
Well, and he didn't take any mess off anyone.
No, he didn't.
There was a case of a white milk truck driver who saw him outside in the heat. He had an umbrella. And this guy says, "You don't need an umbrella. You're already black." And J.B. Stratford snatched him off that milk truck and whipped the mess out of him.
He took nothing.
He took it from no one.
Nobody.
Yeah.
He worked hard to be who he was and to help others. That was the other thing about the family conversation, our family conversation, that he was, it wasn't just about him. He really had this thing about fixing lots of lives.
Right, and he started the library also. He built
Yeah.
the library in Tulsa. When did they finally drop these ridiculous charges
I
against
think it was
him?
about 1996.
96, so
was quite a while.
75 years.
Yeah,
And he died in 1935, so
right.
he died not having his name cleared.
Right.
But we didn't need those folks to clear his name. He
No,
was
because for us, he was still
a hero.
absolutely
Yeah,
right.
hero. No kidding. This man should be put in the same level as a Rockefeller or Andrew
Wow,
Carnegie.
that would be
No,
great.
seriously.
No, I agree
For
with
what
you. I
he
think
did-
that'd be wonderful.
No, what he did in a segregated city, he became a millionaire.
Yep, he did.
Just knowing how to control his money and work the system, right?
And not only that, he made sure that his son went to graduate school.
Became a
He
lawyer?
Became a lawyer in Chicago.
Right.
And it passed on down. I think I was the one that kind of broke the line because I was supposed to go to law school. I'd been accepted to law school, and then
He ended up in Morocco.
for 3.5 years, I learned to speak Arabic and French, but I didn't learn law.
Well,
But they forgave me.
we know that Oklahoma took this out of the history books. And this is just one of many examples of how this country waters down or doesn't tell the truth
That's right.
about the history in this country. And that's why it's important that we begin to tell our stories our way.
Right.
And that brings us back around to your visit here. I understand that there's a movement of to make a movie on what happened in Tulsa.
There is. And there's some very good people involved.
Can you name one?
You.
Oh!
And I'm so pleased about it because I have always wanted to tell the story. I've done my little books that are not as professional as your books, but I'm hoping to get one. But we're getting ready to be 100 years in the anniversary
Yes.
of this event, and I think it's worth acknowledging. It's something that we have to know, and everybody should know, not just us. Historically, this is an important thing that has happened in this world, given how we started. And, to know that you come out of slavery and wind up the richest people somewhere, and then be destroyed because of the jealousy, because those other people haven't been able to figure it out how to do it without this issues that we've had to go through.
Why do you think it's important, given what we have going on in Washington, D.C., who the president is, and some of the messages that are getting out here to certain elements in the white community, why do you think it's important that we do this movie now?
Well, I think it's time for us to spread the story educationally as well as, in terms of a film that's entertaining. And hopefully it would be moved into the schools because we've got to figure out a way to keep our feet grounded, our children educated, so that not more people are getting killed like they were in Chicago this last weekend. I mean, it's ridiculous what's happening in this country. Somehow we cannot seem to educate these kids properly, but where are they getting the guns from? White people must be selling them these guns.
Absolutely.
And they know now that they're doing it in their own communities.
Mm-hmm.
They're gangs, they're drug dealers, they're whatever. And it's just heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking. The number of people that are dying at the cause of us. We're killing each other. We're not supporting our kids. We're not putting them in college. We're not even saying, I don't know what to do with them, help me out. Get some help from somebody to give you ideas. Loans for school. Just because the guy drives a nice car and he looks good with his pants buckled down around his butt doesn't mean that this is the guy your daughter ought to be dealing with.
Right, yeah.
Or somebody needs to deal with him to show him that this is not going to be your best look.
Right. And also, with I'm not going to discount the real problem of our kids killing each other, but there seems to be a growing trend of white policemen shooting and killing black kids. So we haven't learned anything from Tulsa in 1921.
And it's also, how are these kids getting all these guns? I mean, why isn't it illegal to sell these guns to kids?
Well, it is.
But how are they getting them?
They're selling them to them.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
The law is, and we need to educate these kids so that they know that they've got a positive, or because they're not getting enough of the right education. If all they think is to look a certain way and carry guns and, want to fight one another.
Actually, that's the show, because I think it goes to who's telling our story to our kids. Who's telling that story?
Well, it should
And I
be
don't think
teachers, but it's not happening.
But it's not happening. There's something wrong out there that these kids are killing each other. Why don't they know about J.B. Stratford? So they can say, I can grow up to be like J.B. Stratford. His great-grandson knew about him, and look at him now. He's one of the most successful the most successful black businessman in Chicago.
Well,
and
even in the country, I think.
Yeah.
On some levels.
As a investment banker, because he had he's not an investment.
I don't think he's a banker. He's got his own company.
Okay.
Yeah.
But he's in investments.
Yes,
he's
is.
making money.
And
that's bottom line.
And he learned, I remember when we were kids, how, and started out, he liked, should I say McDonald's? I'll say McDonald's. He liked McDonald's every day. And his father finally, instead of buying him funny gifts for Christmas, he bought him interest in McDonald's.
Do you believe, as we close out our show today, do you believe that Black America can do what our brothers and sisters did in Tulsa in 1921 and build a sustainable economic communities, independent communities, if we do it in San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, throughout the country? Is that possible? Can we do that again?
I absolutely would love to believe that we could. I do.
Okay, you'd love to believe, but you're not sure.
No, well, I hope we could. I mean, I see that we have enough opportunities to make it happen starting in school, and sometimes you got to start in some of the younger kids and try to pull these guys back. But yeah, I think we could. We could create, if not just a community, what about a school? Just to start building a great school where you're making sure that these kids are getting the right education.
What can we do today? What can we do today to start reaching that goal of building these? I know a lot of people out there. In fact, you go on the Facebook, and everybody's got a Black Wall Street investment something. Black Wall Street investment something. But where are they going? What are they doing with it? I don't see.
That they had.
Oh yeah, that's one of the most used names on Facebook. Black Wall Street.
This just reminded me of one of the most important issues too about the riot, that the community was bombed from the air for the first time
in history.
In history, the United States has never been bombed from the air at that point.
Exactly, and also they had concentration camps for civilians. Yeah. So, and also, didn't the Gap Band get their name from?
Yeah, because of Greenwood, Archer, and Pine is where the blacks had to live. The Gap Band, these guys from Tulsa, named their band, the Gap Band, and one of their first songs was "You Dropped the Bomb on Me, Baby."
Yeah, and I was talking about the bombing of Black Wall Street in that area.
That was their first song because they were in on it too.
Yeah. Well, can you close us out with some closing comments for our viewers?
Well, yeah, I'm really happy to be here and have made contact with you. You've inspired me to get this story told on more than just one level so that we could share it with our students. We could get books written, and I'm praying for a great movie that I think will spread the word. And we've got to start working on creating a pride of our Black community, making the kids feel good about themselves, not because of some of the issues, but good education, good health, responsibility, being faithful to your families, and looking forward and upward. And I'm praying for that to happen. We may live longer than some of our enemies at the end.
Well, I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you on this project.
I'm praying that you will do that.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, is my goal. And I want to thank my viewers for tuning in to Discussions with the Writer Fred. And I'm going to keep you posted as this project grows, because it's very, very important that we get this message out, especially what's happening in our country today. In the meantime, tune in the next 2 weeks to Discussions with the Writer Fred, telling our story, our way.